Hey YouTube, I thought I would share my conversion story with y'all. As a lot of y'all already know, I'm Catholic, but I wasn't always Catholic. Um, I had an interest of learning about the Catholic Church when I was maybe 12 years old, fifth grade I think. I was watching EWTN, that's a Catholic channel that they had, and I would see the nuns pray the rosary, and I would see the mass, and I just would want to understand what was going on and why were they doing it. So then I used to also see that there were a lot of different churches. Me, I used to go to Pentecost Baptist Church in Baltimore, Maryland. Um, I was Baptist, obviously, and I would wonder what was a Lutheran, what was a Methodist, an Episcopalian. I would pass all these churches and see all of these different names. And I said, does it matter what church I would go to? What's the purpose of these different sects? And then I eventually studied it. So I looked more into it, and with the history of my own church, I come to find out it was created by a man named John Smith in Amsterdam in the 1600s. He had founded the Baptist church because he basically revolted against the, what was it? The Episcopal Church, I believe it was. But then he later on leaving his own church. Um, and then I looked more in depth to the other churches, Lutheran, Methodist. Methodists were similar to Baptists. Um, John Wesley left the Episcopal Church, Church of England. Um, Martin Luther left the Catholic Church, um, and other churches like the Church of Christ, founded by Alexander Campbell. He who, in my opinion, hated the Catholic Church. Um, and there were a lot of other ones. The Eastern Orthodox, the split between the Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox. And so after coming up with all of these dates and founders and names and reasons as to why they founded their own church, I wanted to understand what was the church of Jesus Christ, and what would be the church that he would want me to join, and which one should I go to? Because before I even heard about the Catholic Church, I was aware of Matthew 16:18. You are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church. That always came to my mind every time I would think of all of these churches. My church. Church is singular. Jesus did not say churches. I wanted to understand what was this one church he had founded. So I later on kept looking back and forth to the point where I just didn't know anymore and I gave up. And so I decided to pray to the Holy Spirit because I know he would guide me. And one thought came into my mind: is there a way that we could find unity? Could we be one church? I didn't understand that there was such a big split based on teachings. I really thought it was just a matter of how they worship, but I realized I was wrong. Um, then I eventually came to the conclusion the Catholic Church was more authentic than any other church, and it was started before any other church. One church that did catch my attention was the Eastern Orthodox. I seen their liturgy, And I said, that liturgy looks like it was done back in Jesus' time. Um, but then I also realized that that same liturgy is done in the Catholic Church. But then they'll say that's just an offshoot of the Eastern Orthodox and all this extra stuff. But they still didn't convince me when they didn't have the Pope, because that's when I believed in the authority of the Pope. And the Eastern Orthodox did not believe in the supremacy of the Pope. And that was a big joke. That's when I said the Eastern Orthodox cannot be the true church. So it was between the Roman Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church. And Roman Catholic is where I went. And then when I became Roman Catholic, well, when I started considering becoming Roman Catholic, I started to also see differences in the Catholic Church, the Eastern Catholic, really just West Catholic, Western Catholic, and Eastern Catholic. Um, I lived in the United States of America, Baltimore, Maryland, so I decided to be a Westerner. It didn't really matter, but I'm Roman Catholic. I had became Roman Catholic when I was 16. I'm 17 now. Um, December 16th, 2012. Um, and that was one of the best days of my life. And I waited since I was maybe, 13 to become Catholic. 12th grade I considered it. 13 I said I am going to become Catholic. It took me 3 years before I became Catholic. But I guess that was God's plan for me to actually understand it before I went into it. Because when I went to classes, I already knew. So I didn't boast about knowing it. I still listened. But I knew, I understood. I knew what was going on in the Mass. I knew the Mass before I even first attended my first Catholic Mass. And so God has finally led me to what I've been striving to find the whole time. The pillar and the ground of the truth. What was the truth? And the Catholic Church has the fullness of that truth that I was seeking. The Catholic Church was the church of Jesus, in which he said, my church. This was his church. All of his teachings, all of the church's teachings, compatible with the scriptures. All of the church's teachings, compatible with the traditions of the early church. All of the church's teachings were authentic. All of his practices were beautiful. All of his liturgy was godly. And I had to embrace it. I had to embrace the truth because I knew Jesus wanted me to. I knew this is what he wanted me to do. I know I had to disappoint family. I know I had to disappoint friends. I know I had to disappoint my old church. But I had to pick up my cross and I had to follow him. But Jesus is my true love. And I do not love anyone over him. He came first. And so that's what I did. I embraced him. Just as he embraced his cross for me, I embraced his church for him. And to this day, I'm a Catholic, and in 6 days, December 16th, 2013, it will be a whole year. Thank God for the Catholic Church, which is truly a source for good in the world. His church. And I ask everyone to study the Catholic Church. Don't just attack it based on what other people tell you about it. Look into the Catholic Church. Study yourself. Go to a Catholic church. Learn. Be open-minded. And maybe you too will come to the knowledge of the truth. That the Catholic Church is the Church of Christ. And he wants all his people to join his church. This is his church. Come home. There is open arms, just as Jesus had open arms on the cross. All are invited to be part of his one body, the church.